How does your mind know that it's in a body? I think this is one of those questions that is way more important when you start to explore the nature of consciousness. So when you're not moving, when there's nothing input coming in from the outside, no form of reference, not even, I mean, your breath is a form of reference, but say how does your mind know it's in your body? Like right now, is your mind or are you aware of the feeling of your third toe on your left foot or your pinky toe? Don't move it. Just can you get there? Do you have to kind of imagine where it is? Like mind, this was a line I read. I actually changed the line that I read early on, um, right in the first year or two of doing yoga, but it was out of a Zen koan, actually Mumon's comments about a Zen koan. But I changed it into mind enters the body through reference. That actually tells you something about the source of mind, in my opinion. So you sit there and wonder, what does that mean? Like, so how do I create a reference in relationship? Now, think about it for me, like feeling my pinky toe on my left foot. I can't even move my toes to find the place where my mind then can attach to from input. So you got this kind of weird mystery that your mind, maybe your thoughts don't need to have a mind, but I don't know. Someone, that's interesting. So you just feel your feet on the floor, your seat on the chair. And in a way, if you think about it from this perspective, what yoga poses do is introduces different forms of reference for the brain to actually have is come in as stimulus and then to process and then have the mind become aware of different things. But even when I change gravity or if I move, my mind is only aware of the fraction of the inputs. When you're refining your poses, your mind is actually the last to the party, except the mind starts to think it controls the party, right? It's interesting. Human beings have been in love with that thought for a long time. So so you got a counter story about, or a different story of mind enters the body through reference, prana rewards structure. Prana will fill in structure. Prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. So you get all these kind of strange lines that are trying to hint to you. They don't quite make sense, but they're trying to hint to you a different way of inhabiting space. So feel your feet on the ground again in your sitting bones. As soon as I do that, I start to lift gently under my collarbones because I've been doing yoga for so long. I can't just do those two movements. The whole thing starts to change color, right? I hit down, I rise up, all those things that hopefully you've been doing, that it just starts to come naturally. Balance your head over your neck, broaden across your collarbone, slightly broaden the space between your shoulder blades. All these things should be not requiring your mind's participation. They should be coming out of repetitive practice. Noticing the breath between, the feeling into the nostrils, into each lung. Staying aware of your sitting bones, staying aware of your feet, and letting the breath become this extra rhythm of reference and movement coming through your body so your mind can latch on to experiences. Your body was here first. Your mind comes after. Soften the inside of your mouth, around the temples, the jaw. Use that energy to feel more extension up through your spine. Emptiness transforms. If you can take in emptiness, let it interact with reference, it will transform your consciousness into what is up to you. Don't you hate that? Having to be in charge of it at some point? Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Good. And then release. Take your sternum up towards your chin down over your sternum. I say it all the time. That's an important position that connects your energy more directly, says the yogis that have been doing a lot of asana and meditation more than you. Is it going to change the universe and solve all the problems? No. Is it going to transform your presence if you learn to hear it better and better? Most likely. Can I coordinate the breath through each nostril, into each lung, the corresponding lift in my chest? Can I feel that against the backdrop of my feet and sitting bones? Can I breathe in life, which you do with every breath, but can I better receive it? Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So things like the bandhas and, blah, 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 or fancy Sanskrit words about them, but you got to remember the yogis are sitting there and they're getting super quiet and they're receiving something and then they're trying to express it to people that they can share it with. So these positions, not even before asana, are actually things that in their experience, when they start to occupy slightly different, more disciplined positions, they feel more connected to the universe and more present. They're not they're not initially disassociating from the body to hear the hum. There's a line, I guess, from the historical Buddha. I had William Prana say this in a class one time on when he was teaching that the Buddha apparently said the first foundation of mindfulness is the body. I'm not sure. I doubt he used the word mindfulness, Buddha. I think that's probably a translation, but all right. So we're starting to move around, right? So we're introducing the movement again, right? But remember, all of your poses and even your breath occur against the backdrop of profound silence or emptiness, or against the backdrop of the ceasing. There's a ceasing component to our living life force. But yeah, it's been a lot. I just wrote a book on that, right? So I'm moving around, introducing reference so my mind can appreciate what's actually happening in my body rather than thinking about my morning to this point or the rest of my day or the rest of my week. I'm actually trying to get the body and reference to help my mind into what's happening. Oh, so it's interesting. So let's take up more space like we always do. Take the legs wide. Take up more space. We're not even quite doing asana all the way, but we kind of are because we're trying to quote, listen. Have you noticed that furrowing your brow and squinting your eyes is not a great way to listen better? Right? How do you become a better listener? Not just to people's words, but like to the universe. Sounds, but that's not even sense. But how do you listen to what's already was here before your mind started to narrow the world though? Because that's the only way a mind can be. So I'm activating my spine some, I'm just moving around. I could include my arms. So one of the things from teaching yoga for as long as I have, but also especially traditional students, more traditional students, meaning people that don't have neurological deficit or are sitting in chairs. In standing poses, when you're teaching standing poses, it's amazing how often people forget that they have a torso. Because the mind gets so much more reference out of the arms and the legs, right? Right. And in the hands, obviously, it's one of the great innovations that allowed us to pick bananas off of trees, right? Right. It was these thumbs and all this stuff, right? But in fact, we tend to not feel down through the midline. We tend to feel. Mind goes from outward to inward, typically, right? So this is louder, right? So the idea that's kind of a breakthrough in a yoga pose, I'm going to lean over this way, put my hand on a table over here so I don't fall over, right? It's amazing how often when you're teaching any kind of student, but like a person that's standing, how often when they lean one way, they forget the back foot on the other side. They don't stay in the whole body. So the instruction is press down through the outer rim of the back heel, like if my legs were wide, right? So because I can't press down to the outer rim of the back heel, I can try to place my mind where I really don't have much reference, which would be on my heel exactly. Instead, I'm going to put, like I always do, I put my hand on my back of my leg on my left thigh as I'm leaning to the right, and I push down on the bone, and it propels my spine this way, right? But I know enough as a yogi, as I propel this way, I'm going to use that extension this way to feel down to my foot. I'm going to actually try to feel more from the reference on the back side of the pose, the place that my mind is going to typically want to forget unless I train it. I'm going to go the other way. I have no table here, so I'm going to lean on arm rest. Again, we're just trying to notice this basic truth that mind enters the body through reference. So I'm leaning this way and my brain's solving all these problems not to fall, right? And I know that when I go one way, my mind's going to follow the drama. It's easy to forget, right? The backside, right? The place that you launch from. So to change that, I'm going to press down through the outside of my hip, press down to get more earth energy, more grounding, extend my spine up and lift my chest. But I know from practicing a lot of yoga that when I do this, I want to hear for the cascading effect down to the places I can't feel as much. Space reveals grounded space, reveals space. I know I am feeling more and more of a hum in my leg, my foot down at the bottom because of the space I'm creating in my spine. So I'm going to lift up again, right? I'm going to start doing this stuff. So becoming more aware of your spine. I mean, there are whole methods of yoga that are trying to release the magical energy, the Kundalini energy in your spine, right? Because certain yogis identified that energy more important than how your mind functions and your brain functions, that the life force comes more through the spine and is underutilized. I tend to agree with that, right? That there's potential we're leaving on the table. Sure, we're not using all of our brain, but I think there's potential in the spine that would help us realize more of our brain, right? So I'm going to lift up again, right? I'm getting that space. Remember, I'm trying to get you to not be as compressed in your low back because it collapses really important space. One of the questions I ask in my book is, how come we don't become aware of our spines until it hurts? Until they hurt. That's interesting because my mind's out, right? It's out. It's not in the midline. Although we all know that the midline is probably the source of whatever we are, right? So I'm trying to, so like, have you thought more, and this is another thought experiment in the book, have you thought about how important the spine is? Like at the base of the spine, they call that the life chakra. Well, there's a lot of reasons why, but partly because we procreate down there and make new life from the base of the spine, right? Right. The mouth, if you think about it, all language comes out the top of the spine, right? And then if you coordinate the chest, which we call the heart center or whatever you want to call this stuff, right? It's pretty important stuff, right? And so a yoga pose is actually trying to put you in different positions to coordinate different parts of your spine, right? Instead of being in love with, oh, can I stretch my arm down? Can I get it to the floor, right? What happens, this is why people forget their torso. It's like, well, all those things are moving through the midline, right? There's a great line, come back to center. There's a great line that I heard William Prana again say from his teacher Ramanan about triangle pose or getting farther into a pose. I've been to the floor and back and God is not there, right? And minds are going to think, oh, if I could just get to the floor, if I could just get my heel down, if I could just balance, God damn it, more of the world would be revealed to me. Well, probably it matters more what's happening in your magic energy as you're moving. So one of the things asana is doing is saying, wait, don't have your mind follow what it thinks it needs to accomplish. What are the sensations occurring in the spine as you're moving? How can I coordinate different parts of my spine that we've already know that are really important, the base, the chest, and the mouth, right? We already know that that's really important, right? For a lot of reasons human beings have already identified, right? So I'm gonna do a version of dog pose and think, okay, what's happening in my spine? Like how do I make sure there's slightly more awareness at the base of my spine? Well, it turns out that the instruction to help a yogi do that is to roll your inner upper thigh slightly in and down. Now, when you do that, even in a seated position, a whole bunch of things start happening at the subtle level. That's why it's in Tadasana, mountain pose, that rolling in and down. Right now, if I'm listening to what I'm receiving, why would I do that? Well, it keeps a grounding, right? And then it invites an extension of my spine in the other direction and a broadening across my collarbones and a dropping of my shoulder blades. Asanas are just following something. And then when you get that kind of structure and you know prana reward structure, breathe into it. Breathe into the pose. And remember, when you breathe in and breathe out, when you have the structure provided by the body, the foundation of what your mind can even be, and then you breathe into it, and you know your breath cycle includes both movement and the ceasing, movement and the pauses, right? In your breath cycle, you're actually introducing way more into your pose when you're breathing in sync with the structure. So I'm doing it again. And how can I support through the structure the traction and the depth and the revelation of my breath? You're going to find that the instructions in dog pose, in any pose, are attempts to amplify the movement and the ceasing and have it housed in your body, not just your mind. So we say things at Mind Body Solutions like presence in your body is your birthright. Good. And then release. So you think about stuff like, of course, I like picking on Renee, right? So she does a good, she's been doing diapos for a long time. I'm not picking on her, right? And it has to do with all the reasons that have to do with her balance and stuff, right? All this stuff that she's in order to even do that pose, a whole bunch of stuff are happening. But I know from watching the screen and knowing her in person too, so I know this too, to the extent to which we could get Renee could broaden across her collarbones, right? And drop her shoulder blades, she'd get more sensation in her legs, right? That's because this is one of your diaphragms. It's weird. It's like whatever. So no, and then also broadening across your sacrum also opens things up. But a lot of us, because we're in chronic pain, but also because we're just trying to balance, we drop energy into our joints. We kind of ground in the emptiness, right? So a lot of the times you're trying to bring that to life. So instead of looking down, everyone put your hands on the table or on your thighs, whatever, and really try to broaden and open this energy, right? Keep your arms straight. Now, when you go farther forward, you're going to lose some of it because the positioning is going to drop, right? So you're going to like ground your hands and redo it. Drop your shoulder blades, hit down through your sitting bones. Hopefully you can hear all the instructions I give all the time. Now include your entire rib cage through your breath. Each time you breathe, let it cascade down to your sitting bones and feet. You can do this because you've been practicing it in sequence this whole time. Good. And then release. So again, I like try to think about certain movements as bridge poses. That's a line from B.K. Sangar. There's certain bridge poses. Certain poses like Tadasana would probably be the ultimate bridge pose, right? Where you see other poses. So we just like did this stuff and broaden across and opening this part of the body to try to hear dog pose. But can't you also hear upward facing dog? Right? So we're going to about to do that, right? So you can hear that the same thing that went into this can turn just slightly skyward with the center of the chest, broad in the collarbones, dropping down, feel your feet, feel your tailbone. Connect your tailbone, your heart, and your mouth. Good, and then release. So the poses are sitting there. They're kind of like a party waiting for you to happen if you want to go a certain way. Now, there are times where this position, not necessarily upward facing dog, but something like upward facing dog, and I've taught this many times. I remember the the yogis is part of this class is that they're creating asana creates reference and then they follow what they're experiencing. So instead of doing full dog pose, we're going to do that goofy thing. I can kind of see how these poses developed. I can feel it, right? So if I put my hands, I'm kind of doing in a way when you start to think about how much these poses are alike, right? I'm going to put my hands like this. I'm going to come forward a little bit. You can kind of start to just already feel upward facing dog is sitting right near here, right? And then you start to take your head back. And as you do that, and as you take your head up, and you actually, when you take your head up a little bit in your gaze, notice how you probably stole a little bit from your legs to take your chin up and your gaze up. You probably your spine went skyward, right? And then release. That doesn't mean it's a mistake, right? It means your mind, as it tried to do the pose, stole a little bit from your base, gained something as it started to look skyward, but it stole a little bit, right? So you could do all sorts of things to try to help that. You could try to ground through your sitting bones, ground through your feet. But I'm going to think this is where I think part of this weird like mouse stuff started to come from, right? So if you think about it, we're going to do the pose again. And at a certain point, you're going to go, dang, it makes sense. It does to me at least. So I'm coming forward. I'm doing the rising up, right? Starting to take my gaze up, like up for facing down. I'm dropping my shoulder blades. I'm spreading. I'm spreading across my sacrum because I'm trying to keep it down. I'm trying to feel my legs still. But I'm getting the skyward happiness. Now stick out your tongue really long and down towards the ground. Doesn't that make sense to keep the earth with you? That when the tongue goes this way and the palate goes up, you're actually taking everything with you. Good, and then release. So I'm curious. Now, I could be way out weird. We're going to do it again in a second. But can anyone see what I'm trying to say? That the tongue going down as the palate's going up and the gaze is going up actually ensures that you keep the earth with you a little bit? Is anyone with me or am I being too weird here? Can you hear what I'm saying? Thumbs up for God's sakes, or thumbs down, right? Isn't that kind of freaky? So you think that when you see that picture of that in the book, you go like, that's just monkey business. That's just weird shit, right? And then you go, no, wait, they're following something and they're trying not to lose something, right? And you go, oh my God, I can hear the train they're riding. I can hear the thing they're trying to show, right? Try it again. Now, is that the only way to maintain your base? No, I very rarely in my own practice stick my tongue out like that. But the idea that the tongue can go one way and the palate can go another, holy cow, that it can actually make sure I stay closer to the earth as I'm reaching skyward, as my spine gets to inhabit both directions simultaneously. Holy cow. What I first judged to be strange has more to say about my judgment rather than what's actually true. Sounds like a Western mind realizing that it's been living in a dream world. It's been like narrowing things down. So we're going to come forward again. We're going to hint at upward facing dog. We're going to know that upward facing dog isn't that far from dog pose. It isn't that far from Tadasana. In order to start the pose, I'm rolling my inner upper thighs in and down. Do you notice the relationship between the inner upper thighs going down and broadening across the sacrum, which is actually opening, listen to all these words now, it's actually opening the window, the doorway between the subtle body and the physiological body. So before we start looking up, let's go through that again. As I'm going to shift gravity forward. Remember, reference is getting the mind, allowing the mind to have ways to hold on to what's going on. I'm going to roll the inner upper thigh in and down, which, by the way, I can't physically do, by the way. So what the hell am I doing? Same thing you're doing, right? Inner upper thigh in and down. In fact, if you're doing it too physically, you're probably screwing it up. In this regard, Ellie might have an advantage in this pose. Roll the inner thigh in and down, right? Notice to do that well, you should practice broadening across the sacrum at the same time. So we're trying to activate the base of the spine in multiple directions at once. Now let's release again, right? Because this was just, we're not even to the pose and it's super complicated, right? So again, I go here and I'm la la la, tra la la, my mind's not connected to my body, right? I come forward a little bit, earth. I change gravity. My mind plugs into a different kind of attention as I practice as a yoga student. I'm going to roll my inner upper thighs in and down and broaden across my collarbones, broaden across my sacrum. As soon as I do that, does anyone feel their chest lift? I already do. I don't have to do it at first. I have to I watch it happen. So I'm going to follow it, right? Now I'm going to start going up, lengthen my spine, hitting my spine in multiple directions, creating space. Remember, space reveals space, right? And I'm going to start to raise my head up. Now, if you raise your head up, your chin up too fast, come on, don't make that mistake. Don't let your mind be in a rush. Lengthen your neck, drop your shoulder blades, start the gaze up. As you get a different energy, as your gaze goes up and your chest starts to smile skyward, you can see, wait, I'm going to make sure I keep the ground with me. So now I'm going to stick my tongue out, lengthen it. And see, what's crazy now is when I stick out my tongue, I feel a shock wave down through my groin and through my heel. And as I do that, I can broaden across my collarbones between my shoulder blades. I can lift my other diaphragm. And the middle of my spine, the heart center, goes skyward as I stay connected to the earth. Now, can I breathe? I hope so. Good, and then release. Does anyone feel that wave of fatigue after that pose? That kind of tingling feeling? Tra la 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 la. So can you take that tingling feeling and let your empty space float? So it helps me to move a little bit. It's like, dang. So what if that's the space that gets collapsed in one of the things that gets collapsed in dog pose, right? You're forgetting to tra la 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 with the energy right here. But in order to get this energy to open, which is shoulder stand, the queen of all yoga poses, you have to ground your sitting bone. You start to realize, wait, all these things are happening. So just for a quick little digression into weirdness that I'm still trying to figure out, right? So I keep processing weird stuff, wonderful weird stuff that I heard from Richard Freeman and his wife Mary. They're both great yogis about the bandhas, right? Because that's what they've been the focus of their study the whole time. So we were talking about the upper palate going up as the gaze goes up. How do you stay down when you do that? How do you stay connected to the earth? So it's intense. It's really subtle, right? Okay, so see now I just did it, so whatever. My body's like tingling like it's all over right now because I just touched into the bonda, right? I can feel it. My body's going whoof, right? All right. So one of the things, so Richard, I can still see him at lunch showing me this. I can't even imagine because I can't imagine if someone were watching and listening to snippets of conversation. I can't even imagine what someone thought about our conversation because Richard's trying to show me something and his eyes are rolling up in his head and he's showing me the eyes rolling up in the top of his head as his palate is following his eyes, right? And so he's like going up into the top of his head, but he's trying to show me something about Uddiyana Bandha, the base of the spine, right? So what happens is that if you take this action and you think of the top of the palate going up, but it needs to be the consequence of a deepening in the groin. So try it again. So turns out, so if you think about, I don't want to get too far into this, but if you think about the energy of Mula Bandha and you do this thing, you practice, say blah, 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 right? But you deepen it, right? And you start going up. This at the end of the energy coming up your spine, this goes up as the gaze goes up. So one of the things about the bandhas is that they can unground you, right? So as you're doing this, from the base up, palate up, eyes up, gaze up, let your chest go towards the sky. Stick your tongue out down the other way. And then release. You can tell me if I'm being too weird. You see what I'm trying to get across here? Yes, no, right? My point is, and this is really important for adaptive yoga, is by paying attention to the palate and gaze up while something stays down, like the tongue, which is actually the ending point of what Richard was trying to tell me at that lunch. I can feel the beginning point that the poses were complete. I just do them in time, right? Now, can I take my thumb out of my mouth? Can I sit quietly? Can I feel the imprint? Remember, the mind enters the body. This is such weird space. The mind has a hard time doing it through imagination. Can I feel what just happened? And as my eyes go up, can I help it connect me to the earth? The answer is yes. When I do that, I naturally want to broaden across my collarbones. I naturally want to broaden across my sacrum. All the things we just did were just happening. But you gotta, when you learn a pose, you gotta go from the end to the beginning, from the beginning to the end. Gotta start going both ways on that. So now I'm gonna come and sit and do it and think, wait, aren't I pretty close? So one of the things that upward facing dog teaches me in a way that this back bend doesn't, right? Upward facing dog, and I keep telling you this. So lean forward, get grounded. We're going to do a little version of upward facing dog. It shows me where the earth is because the spine's growing out of the earth before I reach skyward. Now, in my opinion, that core energy is more similar to the tongue going down than it is to the palate going up. So I'm practicing. Upward facing dog was teaching you how to stay grounded as your spine aspires skyward. Breathe. Broaden across the collarbones. Feel your palate going up. Keep the earth down. Now, if you want to stick out your tongue to remind you where the earth is, make sure you keep breathing. Notice the hum. Good, and then release. Remember what we're trying to do. Remember, this is the top of the spine, right? What we're trying to do is show the spine how to go in multiple, the mouth, the top of the spine, how to go in multiple directions at once, right? Which is what we're doing when we're hitting down through our sitting bones and rising up through our sternum. We're trying to complete it with the mouth, right? The whole feeling of it. But to do that, a whole bunch of broadening has to happen. A whole bunch of other things have to happen, right? And it's like, wait, that's like wild. All right. So now you take that core. Remember, this class is about mind entering body through reference, watching how asana is helping creating different experiences, and then being able to see the through line of stuff. So even in something like we do, like this standing pose, where you're going to do more, going to lean over to one side. So I'm not going to use the table because a lot of you don't have a table. I have a table over here, right? So I'm going to grab, I'm going to lean over here, right? And I'm going to open. And so, but here, when I just start to pull open, can I go down and have it travel through my palate up, right? When I take my arm wide, can you see how this is window dressing? Except it can enhance the whole. So I'm gonna just do it again. I'm gonna let my palate go up and my tongue go down and try to process it. The problem is you gotta do that and feel your base, not just what's happening in your mouth. Good, and then release. By the way, I have never, ever seen it taught that you're sticking your tongue out like that in the middle of Trikonasana. So I wouldn't practice this all the time because I'm just like following a sensation right now in this class. So now I'm going to go the other way, right? As I ground and ground, I can feel the insight coming from the earth of upward facing dog, right? In a way, taking my arm up and out is a little bit like taking my gaze up skyward, right? I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to separate my palate, upper palate, tongue down, and see what it reveals. Good, and then release. Come back to center, sit in the center. So one of the reasons, or one of the insights that yogic insights that Mind Body Solutions and our approach to adaptive yoga tries to capitalize on or utilize is that the core of the poses are the same in a lot of the poses. The outer expression is just a little bit different. right? So I'm trying to show you this intersection between upward facing dog, a back bend, a bandha, all of these things coming into a movement, trying to show you that the spine's going to have an easier time with arm movements and leg movements. So for the class that I'm teaching now, less movement in your limbs might actually be an advantage, right? Because we're trying to get the core of what happens in upward facing dog, right? To be revealed in a more complex pose. So I'm going to go this way again. I'm going to try to get it all happening. And for me, it's way easier to do my tongue at the end. I get more out of it. Palate and tongue. And then I'm going to bring it back in and keep my palate up and the base of my tongue doing something different. And I'm going to breathe. And I'm going to let a simple separation transform my entire pose. And then release. So remember the simple line, when my body's in pieces, my mind can be one. All we're doing is taking one little part of the pose and saying there's something going in multiple directions at the top of your spine, not just the bottom of your spine in every pose. When you're taking your arms wide and going this way and this way, this part of your spine is going in multiple directions at once. So we're going to go the other way. I'm going to try to feel the whole class. Take my arm up, take my head back. Know that I'm going skyward with my chest and gaze. Coming back, sitting in the chair. So now as I sit in Tadasana, or just center, and I notice that like I'm going to roll the inner upper thigh in and down. I'm going to lift the chest, broaden the space between the shoulder blades, and broaden across collarbones. And that action in my spine can be mirrored on the inside of my mouth. Do it without moving your tongue. Now, I am not saying this is how you should practice. So when you're trying to be this subtly aware, you could ruin it by taking your head forward and interfering with the balance. You can see that this type of awareness requires you to feel safe and feel balanced so you can receive more layers of what's happening. I'm very grateful for the grounding, knowing how to ground the base of my spine and my feet. So I'm sitting here as I'm doing all this stuff in my mouth. I'm just following what's actually happening in my spine. Now I want to do a real gentle twist, right? And I take my hand, I'm going to put my forearm on my leg, I'm going to grab my knee. You do whatever you need to do. I'm going to take the other arm behind me, and that's about as much as a twist you need to do. But I'm just going to do a little bit of an action. Clearly, you don't want to go to maximum here, right? You just want to feel and then come out. You want to feel the fact that it's sitting there. Then we're going to go the other way. Just let there be gentle, gentle. Hopefully, like that opened up some space in you. And then I want you to put your hands on the front of your knees. Bring and push back just gently so you can feel the energy like we've done the last few weeks come up the spine. But I want you to now also feel. So that's why I bring the knees a little bit together so I can feel the inner upper thigh going in and down. Right. So what I'm doing is this. So I'm doing this, I'm hitting back, but I'm making sure my knees are slightly together. So this dynamic is more clear. I'm going to go through my spine, broaden between my shoulder blades across my other part of my diaphragm. I'm going to get the fact that it's going in multiple directions, and then I'm just going to visit my palate and my inward gaze up. I'm going to feel the grounding of the tongue going down. But instead of it going actively down, relax the base of your tongue. That creates a downward energy. So we're just setting up for Shavasana. Breath in, breath out. Preparing the container. Good. And then release. Now it's time to really let go, to allow. Right. So I'm moving around a little bit so I can kind of feel my whole body. Again, get the reference. Right. And I'm going to know that my empty spaces need nourishment. I've asked a lot of it today. My subtle body. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. See what the instructions, you can tell what it's trying to achieve, what it's trying to guide you into. Feel the emptiness in your ankles and your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your elbows, and your wrists. Base of the tongue relaxes. As your mouth becomes a cave, let go of your teeth and your gums. Accept the support of your chair. It was holding you up the whole time. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank the discipline reference of asana, because it reveals it's not just a game, a thing to win. A thing to prove. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes and greet the light. And you synchronize your chest, a smile, and awareness of the base of your spine as you feel the light. Can you do all that and be slightly more aware of your breath? It's a wonder. Hands together if you can. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you. Have a good week.